morphizing big, effectively natural disasters, like the destruction of a planet, for example. We're saying, like, if this is a natural process, if it's like a process where, like, you know, every billion years a planet explodes because other planets need to be formed out of its remnants or whatever, which is essentially what they're saying. Like, I'll use the energy from this birth of this new celestial to spark other galaxies and other planets and whatever. Then it's sort of a cycle of life thing. It's not really a, like, except for it's not, because it's actually like a sentient being who's, you know, now a bad guy, right? But in stopping it, you're stopping the, you know, just the cycle of life in the entire universe. So I'm kind of curious about your guys' thoughts about that, because I think we would have a completely different perspective if somebody just said, well, you know, after a billion years, the sun dies and, well, you know, or 20 billion years or something, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, the sun will eventually decay and eventually Earth will become cold. And if humanity is not off-world by that point, then we're going to have problems, you know? But you can't make that into a moral crusade. It's the same problem of people making, you know, talking about, like, well, if not for capitalism, I wouldn't have to work. I would just live and what's it, one? There's like a meme from a guy who said that we would just, like, go off and live in the ocean, just floating around, enjoying our lives, if not for the evils of capitalism that force him to have a job instead. It's like, well, no. The thing that forces you to work is the fact that you have to eat, and to eat, you got to produce stuff, and you got to have shelter, and to have shelter, you got to produce stuff, and, you know, like, you actually got to work, like, if you want to sustain your life. Like, that's the thing. But it's not a moral problem, right? Like, it's not a moral problem that you have to work. How you resolve the question of sustaining yourself is a moral problem. But the fact that you have to have a moral problem is not something, or the fact that you have to have, you know, sustenance is not a thing where I would say, like, oh, that's immoral. It's immoral that I have to eat to survive. That's a weird thing to say. So I kind of feel that way a little bit with the Celestials, because you're kind of saying, like, oh, this guy's a bad guy, but in reality, it's just kind of like a big force of nature. Mm-hmm. So I don't know I don't know. Again, this is the kind of thing that you could explore in a movie like this that just doesn't get any attention at all. I don't know, you know. It's
dumb. It's not well thought out. It doesn't really work if you think about it for more than, you know, a minute or two. No. It's just it looks cool, so let's do it.
It didn't even look that cool.
No.
Do you think that this spells sort of bigger problems for Marvel? Like, do you think that this? I mean, we've come off of a couple Disney Plus shows that we've been either disliked or felt pretty meh about. There's Black Widow, which was not very good. What else came out after? Spider-Man, Far From Home, which was really kind of the tail end. Shang-Chi, which I was fine with, but I think
we were the rare exception.
It's fine.
I don't think very many people are that excited about it.
No, and again, I wouldn't say that I'm, like, ultra excited about Shang-Chi. I thought it was good. It was better than I expected it would be. But it was fine.
Yeah.
Like, if it didn't exist, I wouldn't be fine. Or if it existed by itself and all the other things, I would be like, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can go somewhere. They're getting into the next movie out, I think, is another Spider-Man movie. Mm-hmm. Then I think it's Doctor Strange at some point next year.
Yeah.
There's another Thor coming up.
Yeah, they're working on Thor: Love and Thunder, although that's been delayed a ton, so I'm not really sure what they're doing with that.
Another Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right. Which just started shooting, I believe.
Yeah. No, I mean, I find myself increasingly, it's just hard for me to care. These movies have progressively gotten worse.
Yeah.
The ideas that this franchise started with feel like a lifetime ago, and obviously things need to evolve and change, but I think what's turned me off the most this year about Marvel properties is just this really weird morality.
Yeah.
Starting with WandaVision and being okay with slavery to this movie just kind of not knowing what is right and wrong.
Also sort of okay with slavery.
Yeah. No, very much okay with. But it was just Icarus that was okay with it, so it's fine.
Right.
But so I think this kind of goes back to our point with the tech companies, is that Marvel and Disney are going to overproduce themselves, because I think this is the problem, is they are overproducing these movies, and they're going to overproduce themselves into irrelevancy. And thankfully with creative stuff outside of technology, it happens a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because there's instant feedback, and you can't take away a dislike button on a movie.
No.
So...
Because the actual dislike button is cash.
Right. That's a pretty good market signal. So
yeah.
I think this movie didn't do that well at the box office. I think depending on who you ask, they'll say, oh, it's fine because it's a pandemic. Other people are like, they had to revise expectations down $25, $40 million, something like that.
Yeah.
So I think the picture is getting pretty clear that something is going to have to change. But I don't know if a drunk troll and Harry Styles is going to do it.
Probably not.
What about
also,
a PG-13 Blade?
Oh my God! Is that a thing? Is it going to be PG-13?
That's a thing. They are scaling it down to PG-13 so they can show it on Disney Plus.
That's an incredible disaster,
isn't it?
Just in the making.
Yeah.
It's just not even
always
a good idea,
trying to
right?
ice skate uphill.
Meanwhile, DC is over here making Robert Pattinson.
Always trying to ice skate uphill. What a good blade pull. Good job.
I've been waiting. I've been waiting to use that one.
Nicely
I've had
done.
that one in my pocket.
I don't know how many people would have gotten that. But that's good Wesley Snipesism right there. Well played.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully DC can come through with the new Batman movie.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that. Like, DC has taken a sort of a different tack entirely, which is like to sort of almost abandon, or at least feels like they've almost abandoned the idea of a shared universe. And
that's okay.
I don't think it's that bad of a thing. Well, and the other thing
I
too,
don't hate that at all.
Well, I don't hate it. The other thing too is that they're about to do a Flashpoint movie, right? So the next Flash movie is going to be all time travel and interdimensional stuff and like different timelines and all that kind of thing. And you can really screw that up in a lot of ways. I think Marvel is actually embarking on their road to screwing that up pretty royally, because I think
is Kang controlling all this?
I guess because he has to be. What's the timekeeper guys? Like, I don't know what any of this. No, none of that makes any sense. But also, it's going to get worse because we're going to get into all the Doctor Strange stuff and the multiverse of madness. But also before that, we're getting multiple Spider-Verses. Like, it's going to get really convoluted really quickly. But here's what I was saying about DC, though. DC, on the other hand, has an opportunity to reset their extended universe if they want, and if they can actually pull it off, because they can take all the same actors and they can pull in from different universes movies with different tones and different settings, and like actually adjust the things about the DCEU that haven't really worked very well, which has largely been like mismatch of tone and like characters that don't really fit who they are or who they really should be. You know, like having kind of a dour Superman is not a great start for that universe. But you could pull in a Superman movie that was still Henry Cavill, if he wants to do it, that was much better, and then you could ultimately call it Earth 2 or whatever. You know, I mean, you can...
Here's a good idea. Start with making one good movie.
No, that's a much better idea. They have to start there, but... You know,
what's the last good DC movie? I would say Zack Snyder was almost there.
Good?
Yeah.
Shazam. I think it's probably only Shazam, really. No, I mean, I think
I was thinking like Dark Knight.
Oh, you're going back farther.
Yeah.
No, I think Shazam is good.
Okay.
I think I'll stick with Shazam.
Okay.
I think that one's a good one. Dark Knight, obviously, it's a class of its own.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, it kicked off all of this stuff.
Right. You know, so I rewatched...
Christopher Nolan, you're just too good.
Yeah. I rewatched Iron Man the other day, by the way, and Iron Man It's great. It's just a great movie. And it's also like it's just not burdened by all of this other crap.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't have all of these other things to try to weave in. And the only thing that gets woven in at all is the end credit sequence where Nick Fury comes and is like, "Hey man, you're entering a larger universe and you don't even know about it yet."
Right.
Yeah, well,
interesting.
Foreshadowing indeed, but like, yeah.
So I do want to bring up this one point. This is a throwaway line in Eternals, but they were talking, I think, Australia, after they found Gilgamesh and Athena.
Yep.
And they were talking about the Avengers and saying, well, who's going to lead them now that Iron Man and Captain America are dead? And Icarus says, well, I could. I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see the guy that obviously has morally conflicted values about should Earth exist or not.
Oh, yeah.
Go up against or join with the Avengers. I don't care about all this other stuff. I want to see that.
Yeah.
But no, it's just move on.
Again, there are all kinds of things in this movie that I think you had an opportunity to like do a pretty interesting philosophical conversation. Again, about like whether or not you battle a force of nature or it's even worth battling a force of nature. You see, like this Celestial has been doing this for billions and billions and billions of years. He is like radically more powerful than you are. He created you. He can do anything he wants, and the reason that he's doing this is actually not. It's not malicious. It's not anything really. It's just
factory farming,
kind of, but also like it's just the nature of existence. It's not anything. It's just,
Yeah. I've always found it very problematic to try to apply human morality to non-human entities in fiction.
When we're doing that in a big way here.
Oh, in the biggest way. And they're not... A Celestial is very clearly not a human, and you cannot expect it to think and act and feel the same way that humans do.
No. But I don't think you should expect Eternals to do so either, which is the weirder part to me.
Apparently do.
Yeah, but they were created by.
I completely don't understand. And they're just fancy robots anyway, so they were programmed to do that.
Right.
So it's wild, man. None of this was thought out well.
This might be my biggest core problem with the Eternals is just the very idea that they are sort of created robotic entities is the biggest problem for this movie, because it immediately shoots off 9,000 other problems and questions that you have to address, which is like, why were they built this way? None of it makes any sense.
No.